Hello everyone and welcome to the chapter number 47 of Blender Master Course Geometry Nodes Part 2 of Creating Dragons. In the previous chapter, we started with the creation of this scene where we used the geometry nodes to create these dragons, and in today's chapter, we'll be learning about all these topics in complete detail and we'll also be finishing this scene. And yes, if you are new to this course, then do check out the previous 47 chapters from the link of the playlist in the pinned comment. Now we are back in the scene, and the first thing that we are going to do today is to create a sun for the background along with the sun rays, and for this we'll be using the Quadrabasia Node. So first of all, in the 3D viewport, let's add some object. So press Shift plus A, go to Mesh, and let's add a cube. Let's move it in the Y axis like this. Now let's open the Geometry Nodes editor from here and click on the new button. To add the Quadrabasia Node, press Shift plus A, go to Curve, and in the primitives, select the Quadrabasia Node. Let's place it over here and connect the curve socket to the group output. Now this will create a quadratic Bezier curve in the scene. Let's go to the top view to see it properly. Now here we have this quadratic Bezier curve added because of this node, and the first option that we have here is the resolution, which basically controls the number of points or the number of edges of the curve. Then we have three more options using which we can control the appearance of the curve. The first option is the start, and this one will control the position of the first control point that is present over here. So if I try to change the position like this, then the changes will be seen on the first control point. In a similar way, here we have the middle option, which will be controlling the position of the control point present at the middle of the curve. So if I try to change the position like this, then that particular point is getting displaced. Then finally we have this end option, using which we can control the position of the last control point which is present over here. So by using the Quadrabasia node, you can easily modify your curve by changing the positions of the start, middle and the end control point. Now the next topic of this chapter is understanding the curve to points node. To add it over here, press Shift plus A, go to curve, and in operations, select the curve to points node. Let's place it over here, and as the name suggests, the curve to points node simply converts the curve into points. Then from the count option here, you can control the number of these points by changing the value like this. So it's a very simple node which you can use to convert your curve into points, and it has three modes: the evaluated mode, the count mode and the length mode. We just discovered the count, where we can easily change the number of these points, but let's also discover the other two. So I'll first select the evaluated mode, and in this option, the number of points will basically depend on the resolution of the curve. So if I increase the resolution from here, the number of these points will increase, and if I reduce it, the number of points will also reduce. Then the third option that we have is the length, and in this method, the number of points is controlled by the length value. So if I increase it, the number of the points will reduce, and that is because the length value added here is the minimum distance between any two points. So as the distance or the length will increase, the number of points will reduce. For now, I'll change it back to the count mode. Now suppose you want to convert these points into vertices. Then for this we have the points to vertices node. To add it here, press Shift plus A, go to point and select the points to vertices node. Let's place it over here, and this node will simply convert the points that we received as the input into vertices. And yes, because now we have converted the points into vertices, as a result, the output that we are getting here is also in the form of a mesh. Previously, by using the Quadrabasia node, the output was in the form of a curve. Then by using the curve to points node, the output was in the form of points, and then by using the points to vertices node, the points got converted into vertices, and we are now getting the output in the form of a mesh. Now to extrude these vertices, let's use the extrude mesh node. So press Shift plus A, go to mesh, and in the operations, select the extrude mesh node. Let's place it over here, change the mode from faces to vertices, and now all of the vertices have now been extruded into edges. In fact, because of using the extrude mesh node, the number of vertices will also have been doubled, because previously we were having the vertices only on the inner side, but now after extruding the vertices into these edges, we are now also having the vertices on this outer side. To check this, let's add the mesh to points node. So press Shift plus A, go to mesh, and in the operations, select the mesh to points node. Let's place it over here, and now you can check that previously we were having only these points, but after using the extrude mesh node, we are now having these extruded points. Now suppose you want more points to be added in the area between each of these 2 points. Then for this you can use the subdivide mesh node. To add it here, press Shift plus A, go to mesh, and in the operations, select the subdivide mesh node. Place it after the extrude mesh node, and now as they increase the level from here, the number of subdivisions will increase, and due to this the number of points will also increase. Now to add some other object like a UV sphere or an icosphere as instances on these points, we'll be using the instance on points node. So press Shift plus A, go to instances and select the instance on points, place it over here. Now for the instance object, I'll be using an icosphere. So press Shift plus A, go to mesh, and in the primitives, select the icosphere node, place it over here and connect it to the instance socket. Let's also reduce the radius of this icosphere to something like 0.1. Now these will be used as the sun rays, and for the main sun object, let's add a UV sphere. So press Shift plus A, go to mesh, and in the primitives, select the UV sphere. Let's place it over here. Let's also add the join geometry node. So press Shift plus A, go to geometry and select the join geometry node. Now I'll connect the mesh socket to the join geometry node. Let's also reduce the radius to something like 0.6 or 0.7, and now it looks perfect. Now to give it some material, let's go to the material properties, click on the new button, then in the emission, I'll change the color to yellow or orange and the emission strength to something like 10 or 11. And now to use this material in the geometry nodes editor, let's add the set material node. So press Shift plus A, go to material and select the set material node, place it over here, and the name of this material is material.002. So let's select this material from this list, and we now have this emission material applied to the sun. However, to view the emission effect properly, we need to change the render settings. In the previous versions of Blender with the EV render engine, we used to have a bloom settings here, using which you could have made the emission look better. However, in the latest version, which is Blender 4.2, the bloom settings have been removed from here, and to get the same results, we now have to use the composting in Blender. But in reality, it's a completely different topic which we'll be covering later on in this course. But for now, we'll be using the composting in order to fix the emission material. So to open the composting workspace, click on this composting workspace option, and this window will appear where we can do all the works related to composting. So for those of you who don't know, composting is basically used to change the way your final renders look. It's more like an image editing tool, and to understand it practically, first of all, turn on the use nodes option from here, and since we need to view the changes in the 3D viewport, so for this, I'll change this dope sheet editor into the 3D viewport. So click on this icon and select the 3D viewport. Let's also expand this window like this, turn on the render view. Now here we have the sun that we created, and to view the changes that we make in the compositor, click on this icon and change the option of the compositor from disabled to always. Now to get the bloom effect, go to the compositor, press Shift plus A, then in the filter, select the glare node, place it in between the render layers and the composite, and from here, change the glare type to bloom. Now from here, change the quality to high, and let's reduce the size to something like 6. Also slightly increase the threshold, and we'll be keeping it to a value of something close to 10. And with this, the emission on the material is now looking perfect. And yes, one more thing, it might be possible that you were not able to understand even a single thing that we did in the compositor. So you don't need to worry about that, because we'll be learning the compositors in full detail in the upcoming chapters. But for now, simply use this glare node, change the glare type to bloom, reduce the size, increase the threshold, and set the quality to high. And now let's go back to the geometry nodes editor. To view the same results over here, click on this icon and change the selection from disabled in the compositor to always. Now let's also fix the rotation and the position of this sun, and for this we'll be using the transform geometry node. So press Shift plus A, go to geometry, and in the operations, select the transform geometry node. Place it after the set material node. Now first of all, I'll change the rotation in the x-axis to 90. Let's move it slightly upwards in the z-axis also, and place it over here. One more thing to notice in the scene is that the bloom effect is applied not only to the sun but also to the eyes of the dragon. And the reason for this is that whatever changes you make in the composting always get applied to the entire scene and not just a single object. Now let's also scale it up. So go to the transform geometry node. Let's increase the scaling in all the 3 axes to something like 2, and now it looks like this. We have these dragons and this simple sun at the back, and with this we are now ready to finalize our scene. So let's go to the camera view by pressing 0 on the numpad. Turn on the lock camera to view from here. I'll change the view like this. Let's also zoom out so that we can have both the dragons as well as the sun in the scene. If you want, you can even add some more dragons by selecting them, tabbing into the edit mode. Let's also go to the top view by pressing 7 on the numpad, and you can easily draw your dragons like this. Let's do one more thing. We'll be creating a dragon in front of the sun also. So let's draw the curve, and you might also get some errors like this, but simply press Ctrl plus Z to undo and draw the curve again. Let's create one more dragon, and now it looks perfect. Let's go to the camera view by pressing 0 on the numpad, and this is how our scene is looking now. We have so many dragons in the scene along with the glowing sun at the back. If you want, you can even change the color of the emission by going to the material properties, and you can change the color from yellow to something like orange or red. Then you can also go to the composting and change the bloom effect from the different settings here, like the threshold value or the size. And with this, we now arrive to the end of the chapter number 47. Today we understood about some new geometry nodes and used them to finalize this scene. Our next chapter will be the chapter number 48, Geometry Nodes, part 1 of creating a sci-fi portal scene. So don't forget to subscribe to our channel, press that notification bell so that you can get timely updates about the upcoming chapters. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.